I'm at the point in the project where normally for me it would be easy to set it aside and go start doing something else. We're about 85% of the way there. It's time to start putting this together. This is where a lot of the finite things come in, and we're going to get into it, so stay tuned. I'll catch you on the other side of it. We're at the fun part of getting ready to do the drawer slides, and you guys saw me put this plywood divider in here. Now, typically when I'm building kitchen cabinets, I make my boxes for the cabinets so that they come flush to the inside of my face frame. That way I don't have to screw around with any blocking or anything like that with my drawer slides until you get to the end cabinets. At that point, what I'll do is I usually make my stiles and rails. I think I go usually 1.5 inches thick on them, so that way I could just put another 3/4 inch block on the inside. Of course, cabinet plywood not being true 3/4 or 1/2 inch anymore makes it a little bit more interesting to do that. But at that point, all I do is I'll leave the face frame just a little bit proud of the box itself on the end caps. But this being what it is, it's a big shoebox is all it is. So the more plywood, the more I can put in here to kind of stiffen the structure up, especially when you're using self-milled, air-dried lumber. I don't mind putting a couple of layers of plywood on the inside. So we're going to have a layer on this side, a spot to screw our drawer slides. We'll have a layer on this side. And what that's going to do for me, that's really going to help make the center of this face frame very rigid. Because what you end up having, if I don't have anything in here over the years, especially going inside, over the years, this thing can warp, flex in and out, and we don't want that. So We're going to keep going, so keep watching if you feel like it. You have some options when you are buying drawer slides. They range from extremely expensive to really cheap. These are a little over $6 a piece for 16-inch long drawer slides at your local Home Depot, depending on where you live. You could get the really nice ball bearing ones. They're probably going to be about the smoothest. You can get them in soft closing, all that good stuff. They work much better than these. If this was my kitchen, I wouldn't be using these. I've built kitchens before using these. They don't last very long, and it's not that they're horrible. I usually don't have a problem with the little wheels wearing out on them so much as the screws not holding, especially in your heavier silverware drawers, things of that nature. But for what we're doing, for a dresser, more of a utility function, they work just fine. Save yourself some money. So when you get these and you open them up, they're going to get a little instruction book with them. You throw that in the wood stove, because who needs those? And one end of these, and this brand, these are Everbuilt, I believe. You're going to have your little pain in the ass screws. They're about 1/2 inch long. They're hard to hold on to. A number 1 Phillips bit doesn't fit in them very well, and a number 2 Phillips bit doesn't fit in them very well. Good luck. These are my biggest frustration. So, these screws, I know it's hard to see on the camera, but some of the slots in these drawer slides, these screws aren't going to fit in. The bigger holes, the heads are going to pop right through them. You're looking for the holes that have the chamfer around the edge. They're smaller. I know it's kind of hard here. All right. So that should countersink into the drawer slide a little bit. Let's see if you guys can see that at all. Not too bad. That needs to recess in there. If you get that screw cockeyed, crooked, or anything like that, these drawer slides aren't going to close together, and it's frustrating. So it's probably the best piece of advice I can give you putting these in. Make sure you put these screws in nice and square. It'll save you a lot of headache. First thing I like to do is mount the drawer sides of these, and I usually take a square. Now I do it as I'm building, but unfortunately plywood, stuff like that, things do have a tendency to move about a little bit on you here and there. So it's not a bad idea just to recheck everything, because as you're putting screws and whatnot in, sometimes stuff's just going to get a little wonky. If these are out of square, you have to make up for it with your drawer slides, because what'll happen is if you don't get the drawer slides to square everything up for you, then when you put the drawer in, you're going to have part of it's going to be kicked out, and it's a real pain to deal with, and it kind of irritates me when that happens. But so I'll take, let's see, so this is going to be the front of my drawer. I'll find the right one here. This is going to be on the back. So I'm going to flush up the very back of this with the back of the drawer. That way I have a little bit of wiggle room in case something doesn't quite set right. The drawer will go in a little bit, and I can shim and make adjustments where necessary. Now, if you did your due diligence with everything, it shouldn't be a big problem for you. But like I said, lumber moves, and sometimes we make mistakes when we're putting things together. But don't let it break your heart. If something didn't go exactly right for you, what makes a good carpenter or woodworker is being able to fix your stuff on the fly. It's no different with anything else that we do. I usually put the middle screw in first. Again, you need to make sure you're perfectly centered in that hole. And you want to get this screw nice and flush and going in square. It's not as big a deal on the drawer portion of it because this part here is not going to be inside the track at all. Just get in the habit of doing it. That way when you're doing the other screws, it's not a big deal. Now I usually put these in, that's driving me nuts, that little rattle there. There we go. As a rule, I don't generally use a drill putting these screws in. They're too easy to strip out. And that can drive you nuts. And it's too easy to, they're so short. It's super easy to go in unsquare, out of whack, and you're not going to be able to straighten it out. I mean, fortunately, you do have a few extra holes on these, but we try just to get them halfway decent. It can be a pain, especially when you're using these little screws inside the actual cabinet or dresser or whatever it is you're building. It can be a pain in the ass to get this, to get it right. So I honestly hate installing drawer slides. It's one of those jobs when I'm doing cabinet work that I don't enjoy very much. Especially if I know I have to do like 10 of them all at once, like this one. Now remember, you're going into the edge of plywood here. At least I am. That's what I built the drawers out of. So be careful of stripping these screws out. They strip out pretty easy. I give them a little tap to help get them started. That helps me get them in a little straighter. Now, you can put screws in the side here also. I'd like to do them this way. This is my preferred method. Everybody has their own way of doing stuff. This just happens to be mine. It does work a little bit nicer in solid wood drawers. But I had enough of this plywood left over, like right there. She just cracked on me, so I'm going to have to go in the side. Some bitch. This has to go in dead center. And flush. There we go. So you are going to have two different sides, and these are going to be labeled on the drawer slides themselves. You're going to have your left-hand slide, you're going to have your right-hand slide. The ones that go in the cabinet, this wheel here, can be facing down, and it's going to be to the outside. That's the front of your drawer slide. I have shim blocks that I ran through the planer to get the exact thickness I needed. So what I'm going to do, same thing I did on the drawer. I'm going to take the back of the slide itself, flush it up with that piece so it's towards the rear. That's going to leave me about a 1/4 inch gap on the face of the cabinet itself. And then we can go from there. Now, it's a pain with doing it like this. These do slide around on you. It can be frustrating. And if you're like me and you drink 50,000 cups of coffee every single day of your life, you tend to shake like a leaf and you knock everything all over the place. So I don't know if you can see that all right, but that screw is recessed in there perfect, so when this closes, we're not going to be, if that thing's out just a little bit, it actually impedes the closing of the drawer, and it'll drive you nuts as you're trying to get it all together. I apologize, this stuff's kind of hard to see. Be careful not to strip these screws out. The reason a lot of these over the years will back out on you, it's because you stripped them out when you put them in initially. And that's no good. So you just snug them in. They will hold. Come on. I think drawer slides is about the most boring video idea a YouTuber could come up with, but here we are. So now when I go to put this in, it's handy to have everything ready in your reach, because just like anything else, you're trying to hold a square, you're trying to run a screw in, and it can be a pain. But what I do with these, this piece right here is going to end up setting on our face frame. So I put that in, and then we've got to square it up before that first screw goes in. Like I said, this is where it's a pain. You're trying to hold everything together, trying to keep your arm out of the camera shot, and you're moving stuff around. There we go, right in there. And hold that square in there while you're doing this, in case it wanders on you. And of course the screw fell off the bit. I'll tell you how much I hate doing drawer slides. I know, some of you out there are going to come in the comments, well, I love doing them. Well, good for you. Okay, I'm going to block you a little bit for a second. Still nice and square in there. This part's actually much easier to do than the other side. If you're like me and you fumble everything you touch, we're nice and square in there. Now this is the side that irritates me and frustrates me, and I hate doing it. Now I will say, not to plug for Craig because I make no money on Craig stuff or anything like that, but they just do make a lot of tools that are great for woodworkers. They do make a drawer slide jig that helps make all this a lot easier than what I'm doing. If you're going to do a lot of these, it's probably not a bad idea to invest in one. And I can't see what the hell I'm doing. Now, if you want to make your life easier and you do have some Craig screws kicking around, pilot that in about 1/4 of an inch or so with one. It's a lot easier to run one of these in straight and start your hole than it is trying to hold these tiny, tiny little 1/2 inch long screws that like to fight you the entire way, irritate you. It'll be about the clumsiest tutorial you guys are ever going to see on this channel. I'm sure we can top it though. I'm going to mark right in the centers where I'm going to put the screws. I like to put the screws, the two, so there's going to be one up here, but I'd like to put the other ones a little closer to the back, just because that's where a lot of the weight's going to be, and you have the support of the face frame up here. And this is my least favorite job. Did I say that already? Again, run your finger, that's nice and flush. Same thing with the back one, get her in there square. Beautiful. Now all these do to go in, tip it forward a little bit toward you, and you lift up. I guess you got to get it, there we go. You lift it up a little bit, it goes in. Voila. So I got to do a little adjustment here. Actually, I think that'll work out all right. I hope that was some kind of helpful at all for anybody looking out to do drawer slides. I'm definitely not a pro, if you can't tell, with that kind of stuff. I can build you most things out of wood, but drawer slides, I hate the darn things. I don't like installing them. I don't like dealing with them. But it's working out. I've done a pile of them over the years. But it's still just one of those jobs. But if you're going to build cabinets and furniture, make peace with it, get good at it. So there's adjustments and stuff you can make to make it all work. So anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this one. Hopefully someday soon we will have a final video on this thing. It's like a lot of my projects here, 50,000 videos to cover one project. But my projects usually tend to be long drawn out projects. So have a good one, everybody, and I'll catch you on the next one.